Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Trinidad and Tobago has foreign exchange shortage and not a crisis. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 14th March 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Multi-Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. While we do not have a foreign exchange crisis, we do have a shortage on forex as demand outweighs supply. This is according to Minister of Finance Colm Imbert, who was speaking at a JAMPRO conference meant to strengthen the ties between Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. TTT News has more.
Minister Imbert said the Export-Import Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, Exim Bank, made foreign exchange available to those within the productive sectors.
We set up a special window for manufacturers, exporters, and importers of essential items. And the government provides this bank with foreign exchange, which is then distributed to companies on request.
Minister Imbert said $1 billion has been put into the Exim Bank, with an extra $180 million added for distribution. As a result, Minister Imbert revealed more US dollars are being repatriated into the country through exports.
When I look at our exports, when I look at what's happening, we've had up to a 20% increase over the last 2 years or so in terms of exports from the non-energy sector.
Minister Imbert said additional revenue from the energy sector will benefit our economy. He used the example of gas from Venezuela, which will be used in the petrochemical sector, as there is significant spare capacity in the LNG, methanol, ammonia, and urea plants.
In the meantime, Trinidad's foreign minister met with the U.S. Secretary of State in Washington. Among the matters of mutual interest they discussed were food security, regional security, and collaboration on reducing the flow of illegal guns in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. TV6's Jewel Brown reports.
Video posted on the website of the U.S. Embassy in Port of Spain highlighted the meeting which took place between U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Minister Dr. Amory Brown on Tuesday in Washington, D.C. In the video, Secretary Blinken delivered opening remarks.
It's a pleasure to welcome Foreign Minister Brown here. Amory, welcome. Good to have you at the State Department, and very glad especially for this opportunity to continue to deepen the already strong bilateral relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States. We are working together in so many ways every day in our own hemisphere, working to continue to strengthen democracy, to forge ahead on building even greater economic prosperity, working on challenges of regional security.
The meeting took place at the United States Department of State building in Washington. In his opening remarks, the Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Minister acknowledged the presence of the recently appointed U.S. Ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, Candice Bond.
It's a pleasure to meet with you here at the Jefferson Room and to meet with your team. As you know, Ambassador Bond has settled magnificently in Port of Spain, and I'm pleased to be joined by our ambassador to Washington, D.C., very distinguished member of our Foreign Service. It's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to our discussions and to working with you to further cement a well-established and productive, fruitful relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States of America.
In a statement after their meeting, accompanied by photographs, the Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Ministry said that the U.S. Secretary of State and the Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Minister discussed matters of mutual interest for Trinidad and Tobago and the United States.
In the meantime, the Oropouche East MP, Dr. Rudal Monilal, is warning the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions of Trinidad and Tobago, of attempts to unseat him. Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan of TV6 News reports.
Former Housing Minister Dr. Rudal Munilal recalls a point during his tenure that after Cabinet approved the hiring of over 100 attorneys for the DPP's office, the Properties Department at his ministry had been eyeing a Park Street location for the DPP's office.
So the Prime Minister, in consultation with myself and others, suggested to me, she said, look, Minister, we are now going to approve lawyers for the DPP office, but the lawyers will mean nothing if they don't have space. So she mandated the Property Division under my ministry to make DPP office space a priority.
He said when his party demitted office in 2015, no final decision had been taken, but up to that time, there was no objection from the AG's office. 7 years later, he laments the PNM government refused to work with that plan and instead opted to rent a building that has not been occupied. Dr. Munilal criticized the establishing of 2 such offices at shopping malls.
So when a witness to a murder is going to give evidence to the DPP, he could stop and have some KFC chicken in the food court where he could be shot and maybe 2 or 3 innocent bystanders could die too. They insisted on putting a DPP office in a mall, in a shopping mall. No part of the world this obtains. In Tobago, it is also in a mall. Who owns these malls?
The Urupooch East MP is alleging moves by the present administration to undermine sitting DPP Roger Gaspard.
Watch for the Prime Minister writing the Service Commission to make a complaint against Roger Gaspard and to have disciplinary action taken against him, which may include suspension or dismissal pursuant to whatever the law is, because I think he could be referred to a Service Commission and the normal disciplinary matters procedure can take place. Watch for an all-out assault by the Prime Minister and the Attorney General on this DPP.
Urvashi Tawari Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. The Americans know everything of significance that happens in Trinidad and Tobago. So says Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. He shared some high-level information with the public on Thursday night, including but not limited to the U.S. government requesting a meeting about some of the happenings in Trinidad and Tobago. Vanessa Cutting of TV6 News has this report.
Something happened in Trinidad and Tobago which caused the government to want to see me, to tell me that as a result of certain developments in the public domain in Trinidad and Tobago and known to them in the private domain, Trinidad and Tobago is now on the verge of not getting assistance, very valuable assistance from the United States.
A warning from the United States communicated directly to Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley during what he describes as a recent meeting on the topic of what the U.S. perceived as extrajudicial killings by the police.
If in a country the police officers are carrying out extrajudicial killings, meaning killing people for no good reason without passing through a process of a court, in breach of human rights, that country, under American law, is forbidden to receive assistance from the United States on matters of national security.
But the Prime Minister says that was not the only meeting to which he was summoned by a foreign government.
There was a major murder in this country, a major murder, which had this country traumatized. And a foreign mission officer asked to see me. I was in the opposition then. Came to see me. And in the conversation, which caused the person to want to see me, said to me, this is not the first time that we have had reason to be concerned about that individual. I say no more.
Dr. Rowley then went on to reference the U.S. Trafficking in Persons report, which he says is yet another case of the UNC staining this country's reputation.
If alligator come out a river and tell you water dirty, no doubt them. So when the leader is faced in front of the whole country with members of your cabinet pointing to members of your selection who you put inside the parliament, and that now stains the country because the Americans have put that in a report for the whole world to read, that in Trinidad and Tobago, there are people in the parliament who either have been or are engaged in human trafficking.
Further noting the life sport, email gate, Section 34, Piarco Airport, and Cambridge Analytica scandals, Dr. Rowley is issuing the following advice.
Give Trinidad and Tobago a chance. So I have had enough of Wade Mark. I've had enough of Doppy. I've had enough of Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bissessa. And I ask Trinidad and Tobago, listen to them, see where they're going, and reject them totally. And when you do that, the only thing you can do to do that, you say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
St. Lucia's Commissioner of Police, Crucita Descartes Pelios, speaks on the crime situation in St. Lucia.
Today marks yet another critical occurrence in our country's history. A growing prevalence of criminal elements spilling over into our public domain and claiming lives of our citizenry. As Commissioner of Police, I am tasked to lead the organization primarily responsible for ensuring citizen security and safety. And we therefore owe an account to the public that we serve. Through the course of 2023, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force has recorded tremendous operational successes, to include increased police visibility through patrols, traffic checks, community outreach programs, the seizure of about 40 firearms to date and continued, the prosecution of offenders, contact with the public to foster better partnerships to address rising crime threats and trends, and increase collaboration with our partners in the region, especially the French, in crime fighting and border control operations. Through our intelligence gathering efforts, we have been able to successfully avert the commission of several homicides. Yesterday's activities, though truly disheartening, are in no way an indicator of a lack of resilience on the part of the members of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. These were the actions of cowards intent on spreading mayhem, which we will not allow.
President of the Barbados Kidney Association, Alan Haynes, says now is the time to encourage members of Parliament to pass legislation to harvest organs, a step that could go a long way in fighting chronic kidney disease, which affects 1 in 10 adults globally.
The legislation, which has already been passed in Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica and Guyana, can result in significant improvements in the life of dialysis patients and financial savings to the government through acts of transplants. At present, Barbados can only complete transplants from live donors. The law does not allow kidney transplant from deceased persons. This limits the amount of kidney transplant that can be done. Government has passed legislation to allow doctors to harvest organs when persons are deemed to be brain dead. At present, Barbados has over 400 patients with stage 5 kidney disease who receive dialysis treatment at an annual cost of $18 million, but between 50 to 60 people died from it every year. Additionally, there are between 20,000 and 30,000 people on the island with kidney disease between stages 1 and 4.
Hubbards is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.